A Pennsylvania family claimed they lived alongside something that could touch them, hurt them, even speak to them. For 15 years, it scratched, slammed, and stalked them in their own home, and it all began with a smell. But what they would see would change how they looked at their home forever. Some houses hold memories, others hold something darker. For the Smurl family, it began with a smell, a thick, rotting odor, laced with something metallic. They thought it was just the old plumbing. They were wrong. By the time they understood what was behind it, it was already too late. If you're into real-life mysteries like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. In the summer of 1974, Jack and Janet Smurl moved into a modest duplex in West Pittston, Pennsylvania. One side was theirs, the other belonged to Jack's parents. It seemed perfect, affordable, close to family, peaceful. For a while, life was normal. But soon, small things began to happen. Tools vanished from Jack's workbench and reappeared in strange places. The kitchen radio clicked on by itself, playing distorted music. Freshly painted walls began to bloom with dark water stains. Things you could explain if you wanted to. Then came the smell. It appeared without warning. Thick, putrid, like rotting garbage, mixed with blood. It clung to the air, to the furniture, to their skin. They scrubbed, they aired out the rooms, but it always came back, and just as suddenly, it would vanish, each time a little stronger. By 1977, things got worse. Janet began hearing voices, faint, low, as if someone was whispering just out of earshot. They would stop the moment she entered the room. The couple's daughters woke screaming at night, saying a dark figure stood at the foot of their beds. One afternoon, Janet was in the basement doing laundry when a shapeless gray mist drifted past the doorway and vanished into nothing. Soon after, Jack woke in the middle of the night with a sharp, burning pain across his back. Janet turned on the light. 3 long, bloody gashes ran from his shoulder to his waist, as if clawed by something invisible. The haunting turned violent. Loud banging shook the walls. Lights flickered wildly. A ceiling fan ripped from its mount, crashing to the floor, barely missing one of their children. Even the family dog refused to enter certain rooms, growling at empty corners, with its fur bristling. By 1985, the Smurls were living in fear. Jack suffered crushing night terrors. Janet felt unseen hands slide across her skin in the dark, and that smell returned stronger than ever, sometimes accompanied by a voice singing their names desperate. They contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren. From the moment she stepped inside, Lorraine said she sensed a presence of pure evil. That night, the team heard guttural growls deep inside the walls, followed by a deafening crash from the kitchen. Nothing had fallen. In the sweltering heat, the room temperature plummeted until their breath was visible. Even the Warrens, experienced as they were, felt an oppressive force pressing against them, as if the house itself were alive, watching. Blessings were performed, but each time, the house fought back harder. Neighbors began hearing screams and furniture dragging. When the family wasn't even home, the Catholic Church sent priests to perform exorcisms. For a short while, the house was quiet, but it didn't last. In 1989, Janet was alone in the kitchen when something icy gripped her wrist. She turned and saw it, a figure, barely human. Its skin was gray and waxy, its eyes black and hollow, its mouth twisted into something between a grin and a snarl. And then, it was gone. That night, the family packed their things and left forever. Years later, new tenants claimed they experienced nothing, but locals in West Pittston still talk. They say, if you're walking past the Smurl house at night, you might hear faint voices drifting from inside. And if you ever catch that rotting metallic smell, it means the house has noticed you. Some say it never forgets, and just as the Smurl house had a darkness that clung to its walls, so did another Pennsylvania home. A darkness that never rests, that waits for anyone daring enough to enter. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there's a house where priests have battled for decades against something they can't see. A place where visitors smell sulfur in empty rooms and feel invisible claws rake across their skin. Some say it's haunted. Bob Cranmer says it's worse than that. They say evil has a smell. But in this house, it wasn't just a smell. It was a warning, sharp, acrid, heavy in the air, like the breath of something waiting in the dark. In 1988, Bob Cranmer thought he had found his dream home, a proud two-story brick house on Brownsville Road in Pittsburgh, built in the early 1900s. Classic charm, enough space for his growing family. It felt like destiny. Bob had admired the property since childhood, and when it went up for sale, he moved quickly. The price seemed fair, maybe too fair. What no one mentioned was the history, whispers in the neighborhood, strange occurrences, families who left in a hurry, and a quiet understanding that this house never let its owners settle in. The first signs were subtle. It began with a smell: sulfur, sharp, chemical, clinging. Bob checked everything: the furnace, the pipes, the wiring. Nothing explained it, yet the odor returned, especially at night, lingering in the corners, as if something stood there, breathing. Then came the sounds, low guttural growls, seeping from inside the walls. At first, the family dismissed it an old house, settling, maybe an animal. But the noises didn't fade. They grew louder, angrier, closer. Then, it became physical. Bob's children woke, with scratches on their arms and legs, thin, burning lines, bleeding just enough to sting. His wife began hearing voices when she was alone, soft, mocking, speaking in a language she didn't understand. One night, Bob awoke to heavy footsteps pacing outside his bedroom door. He got up, ready to confront the intruder. But when he opened the door, the hallway was empty. The air was freezing cold enough to see his breath, and the sulfur smell was overwhelming. From there, the activity escalated. Light bulbs exploded. Crucifixes fell from the walls. Doors slammed, hard enough to crack the wood. The sulfur odor became constant, clinging to clothes, to hair, no matter how much they cleaned. Fearing for his family, Bob contacted the Catholic diocese. A priest arrived, sprinkling holy water, reciting prayers, but instead of calming the house, it seemed to provoke it. Growls became roars, objects flew across rooms, and then it turned on Bob directly. It happened late one night. Bob was lying in bed when an invisible force pressed down on his chest. It crushed the air from his lungs. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak. The guttural growl he'd heard before was now right above him, vibrating through his bones. Just as he felt himself slipping away, the weight lifted. The room was silent. Over the months that followed, multiple exorcisms were performed. Each time the house would quiet for a while, but it always came back when it did. It was worse. Deep gouges in the walls, furniture shifted overnight, shadows darting at the edge of vision. One especially cold winter night, Bob sat alone in the living room. Without warning, the temperature dropped sharply. His breath fogged in the air. The sulfur smell burned his nose. From the dark hallway, something emerged. It was tall, black, featureless. Its eyes glowed faintly red. It didn't walk, it glided forward, silent, deliberate. Bob grabbed a crucifix and shouted a prayer. The figure stopped, tilted its head, as if studying him, and then, without a sound, it vanished, leaving only the fading stench of sulfur. Despite the exorcisms, the Cranmers never rid the house of its presence. They adapted. Blessings became routine. Certain rooms were avoided after dark. Even now, visitors claim to feel watched, to hear those low growls, to smell that same acrid scent. Bob says, the house isn't just haunted, it's occupied, and whatever lives there claimed it. Long before he moved in, the activity has quieted, but it has never truly stopped, because some houses don't just hold memories, they hold promises. And on Brownsville Road, something was promised a long time ago, and it isn't letting go. From Pennsylvania we travel east to a secluded farmhouse in New York, where the land itself seems alive and harbors something far older, far hungrier than either of the homes we've just seen. Crazy, right? And this isn't even the worst part. But before we get to it, hit like if you're following along. It helps us share more stories like this. The priest swore he'd never return, and the family left so quickly they didn't even take their clothes. Decades later, the house is still waiting. Some houses feel empty when you walk in. This one felt like it had been waiting, watching, and it was cold in a way that touched the bone. In the early 1970s, Clara and Phil Dandy thought they had found their dream home, a secluded farmhouse outside Hinsdale, New York. It stood alone at the edge of dense woods, surrounded by rolling hills and an unnatural stillness. From the very first morning, something about the quiet felt wrong. No birdsong, no wind, No crickets at night, only silence, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The disturbances began small. A single knock in the dead of night, footsteps overhead when everyone was downstairs. But soon, the knocks turned into pounding, hard enough to rattle the picture frames. Sometimes, the sounds came from inside the walls. Clara began to see movement in the fields, a tall, shadowy figure standing just beyond the tree line. She would blink, and it was gone. The children whispered about voices in their rooms, low, urgent tones in a language they couldn't understand. One night, Phil came home late. The living room light was on. He stepped inside and froze. The heavy oak coffee table was hovering several inches off the floor, slowly rotating. He stared, waiting for his mind to explain it, until it slammed down so hard that one of the legs splintered. From that night on, the haunting turned violent. Cabinet doors burst open, shattering dishes. Lamps fell without warning. Doors locked themselves, trapping people inside. The dandies called Father Alphonsus to bless the home. The moment he stepped in, he said the air felt heavy, like walking into a storm. As he moved through the rooms, sprinkling holy water, deep guttural growls vibrated through the walls, sounds no human throat could make. During one blessing, the priest stopped mid-prayer, staring up at the staircase. "Do you see them?" he whispered. Clara saw nothing, but later, he admitted that shadowy figures had been standing there, watching him in silence. Soon after, the attacks began. Phil woke to deep scratches carved into his back. Clara was shoved so hard in the hallway that her ribs bruised. One night, their daughter's screams tore through the house. Her bed was shaking, lifting off the floor, as if something was trying to throw her from it. Desperate, the family called paranormal investigators. The moment they arrived, cameras failed. Fresh batteries drained in minutes. Still, they captured chilling audio, voices no one had heard at the time. Some were low and threatening. Others repeated a single phrase over and over. "Get out. Get out." The investigators had grim news. This wasn't just a haunting. Whatever was here was tied to the land itself. Something ancient, something malevolent. The dandies tried one last exorcism. Father Alphonsus returned with 2 assistants. Halfway through their prayers, every light bulb shattered at once. The temperature plummeted, their breath visible in the air. Furniture scraped violently across the floor. Doors slammed in their faces. When it was over, the priest admitted he had never faced such resistance, and could not promise the entity was gone. Within weeks, the family fled, leaving most of their belongings behind. They never returned. Today, the Hinsdale house still stands. Visitors speak of shadowy figures in the windows, voices in empty rooms, and that same crushing heaviness the moment you step inside, as if the house is studying you. Locals whisper about the land's bloody past, murders, strange rituals, and unmarked graves hidden in the surrounding woods. Some believe the evil here has been feeding for centuries, and the house is merely its vessel. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: the Hinsdale house doesn't just have a history, it has a hunger, and it's still waiting for its next family. If you were offered this farmhouse for free, knowing its history, would you spend a single night inside? If this gave you chills, don't forget to like, comment what you think, and subscribe for more stories that you won't believe are real.